there, and welcome to the Parenting Show. I'm Jennifer Anderson. We're talking about chores and responsibilities today. Who better to help us parents wade our way through the discussion is family counselor, parenting expert, and my co-host, Alyson Schafer. Hi.
How are you? I was going to say, and friend.
And
we've been doing this now for 7 seasons.
Yes.
We've raised our kids together.
Yes, we have.
And helped parents along the way.
And as much as our kids are older now, yours are older than my littles.
24 and 25 now. Yeah. I have young women.
Yeah, and so, you know, we've constantly seen this topic come up over the years on the Parenting Show, the idea of chores, the ideas of responsibilities, and kind of figuring out what it is that is a chore, if it's tied to allowance, what the responsibilities are just for being a person who lives under that household.
Right. Well, so and let's start with that as a premise, that in your household, we want kids to develop the skill set to be able to master life outside the family. And too often we get to grade 12 and we start looking around at where our kids might go to college or university, and we realize, oh, wow, they don't know how to do laundry. They don't know how to cook a meal. And we try to like download all these skill sets in the last year, and we completely overwhelm them. So instead, I think we have to think about the ideas. We want our kids to be able to develop skills for autonomy and independence in the real world, but also I want them to have a mindset that says that when you live in a group, when you are part of a team, nobody gets to sit back and get a free ride. That the whole idea is that, you know, everyone participates in the health of the team, you know. And so if you're two, you might think, well, what's a 2-year-old going to do to help the family? Well, a 2-year-old can do a lot. A 2-year-old can push the chairs back in after dinner. A 2-year-old can take the toilet paper and put it into the basket in the guest room. You know, a 2-year-old can walk around with a plate of cookies, you know, and offer it to people at snack time. So the idea that everyone is expected to participate and help. If you lay that expectation early, then when you get kids that are older, it's like, well, of course I have to cut the grass. Well, of course I have to do homework. But unfortunately, what is too common in households is that we don't do the life skill training. And we don't give kids responsibilities because we've got a dog walker and we've got a nanny, we've got a cleaning lady, and all we ask kids to do is to go to school, and we entertain them. So that when you finally get a child who's in grade 7 and grade 8 and you start saying like, hey, you know, we now think that you have some magical competency, maybe now we should start giving you some chores, they will feel absolutely put upon. Absolutely. What do you mean?
The world has ended.
Because up until that point, their expectation is that I'm not supposed to do anything. And I certainly see this, and I think this is a really important point. I've never seen such bad attitudes around kids and homework than I have seen in this last few years. And I think part of that is because these kids, as soon as something is tough, boring, or they're not interested, or they don't see the point of it, they're out. And it's because they haven't experienced, you know what? Cutting the grass, boring, unexciting, whatever. But you do it anyways because it has to be done. You know, you got to clean the fridge. You know, there's a lot of things that we have to do that you have to persist through, even though they're not necessarily all very engaging or interesting, but they just need to be done. And I think if that expectation in reality is exposed to kids earlier, then they'll start to understand, it's just one of those things that you got to do that you don't necessarily like, but that's part of life.
Right.
And kids don't get that experience anymore.
So you mentioned 2. At what age should chores start?
Yeah, I mean, it really goes down to what are we going to call a chore. If you've got a 2-year-old, you could call it a chore, but you know, they are the most motivated of any age child that there is going to be, right? Me do it, I help. Me sweep. Like they want to do everything. So if you want, you can give it to them as an official job. But actually at 2, you can often just say, do this, do that, whatever. And they're just happy little monkeys. They go do it. But I think if you just keep, we talked about having family meetings, and part of having family meetings is to say, hey, you know, what kinds of things could people do to help out around the house? And your family can make up that little, I mean, you call it chores, but, you know, they're responsibilities. When it's your responsibility and you do it, you have more of a feeling of pride in that you helped and that you contributed. I think the word chores is, like, what do you think of when you hear the word chores?
Well, it's work.
Like, yeah, usually stinky work.
Yeah.
Like chore. And if parents come at it like chore, then you're going to kind of tell the kids, this is something bad, you know, like, and what we tend to give kids is more janitorial type duties. So it is like picking up the dog poo, taking the dog for a walk, emptying the dishwasher, taking the recycles out. And I think part of why kids get a bad flavor of those set of responsibilities is like, why not give them something where they can really feel like pride of place, that they're really making a contribution?
So let's talk about that then, because how do you create kind of a positive feel around the word chore? What are some of those more
Well, first,
fun?
I would say drop the word chore, just again, because I just think it's a tough word.
Yeah.
Who'd let, responsibilities, or whose job, and when I worked in a nursery school, every kid in the classroom had a job. And if some kid came new halfway through the term, I would say, well, we've got jobs, but maybe you could look around the classroom and tell me what you think would need to be done to help us out more. And I remember this one little boy saying, well, I noticed that the scissors are always really messed up. I could organize the scissors. Like, great, wrote a new tag. You're our new scissor organizer. Came home from school. Mommy, I'm the scissor organizer.
They let me use sharp objects.
Great job. So, you might ask your kids, ask them to look around. What would be helpful, and play on their natural talents. So a lot of eldest are very organized and they tend to like things tidy. They're a little more type A-ish usually. So I asked my eldest, would you help organize the front hall closet, because it was just a total mess with all the winter clothes and all that. And she was super excited to do that. She hated how messy the closet was. And so she spent like an hour, matching up all the gloves and putting things in little baskets and putting coats by person in the family. And at the end, there was sort of like this big reveal. And I was just like, wow, thank you. This is amazing. This is so helpful. I appreciate this. And her sister comes up and like, what's all the big deal? And I'm like, let your sister organize the closet. And the younger sister breaks into tears and she's like, why does she get all the jobs?
Yes.
My kids are crying over, So if you give them something they like to do that's helpful to the family, you show your appreciation for that contribution, it becomes something that kids really are motivated to want to do.
So then to extend on that, there is a vested interest in the moment that somebody doesn't put their shoes away, perhaps they are the ones that are saying like she's saying to her sister, hey, I just cleaned this whole coat closet. Get your shoes in there and tidied up. Because so it's less for you to kind of do that nagging and reminders. Not nagging, reminders. Well, and also I think if you get exposure to a bunch of different things, you start to realize, for example, if you're the person who is, has to do dishes, you realize, like, come on, people, rinse the oatmeal out of your bowls, because if it dries, you got to scrub that sucker. It takes 3 times as long. And suddenly, to your point, people are now rinsing their oatmeal bowls because they have walked the path of the dry oatmeal scrubbing job and they realize it's not nice. We've all walked that path. Yes, well marked. Yes. Yeah, so I think it's another reason, it helps them see there's reasons why we do things the way we do. All right. We do have some questions that were submitted on social media. So this one, my issue is kind of unique. My kids want to help out with everything, and even things that are dangerous and well beyond what they can manage. I want to encourage them to help, but they get upset when I won't let them do things like use a sharp knife. So again, this goes probably to the younger age set, because they're still really excited and they want to scramble up on counters and they will want to participate. So what I would say is continue to encourage them, and really ask yourself, first of all, is it really out of their skill set? And what I mean by that is a lot of times, like, parents don't want them to hold the blender when they're making cookie dough, because if you get the angle wrong, which you do when you're young, the cookie dough is going to fly up and hit the backsplash, and now mom's got to clean it up. Yes. So I would say, for a little bit of mess, why not teach how to hold it properly so that it doesn't hit the backsplash? But you're going to have a few little oopsies, but I would still let them do that. I wouldn't say you're not competent, you're going to make a mess, so therefore I have to do it. And certainly with the sharp knife, okay, so I understand that if something is so dangerous that it's irreparable harm, that you got to protect your kids. But kids can actually get banged up a little bit.
You know, like you can put an electric frying pan down on the kitchen floor so that a kid can flip pancakes. And is the edge of their hand going to maybe touch the side of the electric frying pan so that they get a little bit of a burn? Okay, we're talking a little thing that you're going to put some Ozanol and a Band-Aid on, like kiss a boo-boo. That's very different, you know, than catastrophic injury. Like, I'm not talking chainsaw chaps here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, so I think
Do you have chainsaw chaps?
I do, actually.
You do not.
I do. I have a cottage with, I do.
Okay.
I never put them on my children.
That is on the next episode of the Parenting Show.
But I'm saying it's okay for kids to get bumps and bruises. And in fact, to the point about the knife, I mean, how sharp is it and what are you getting them to cut? And because I think sometimes what ends up happening is we end up saying, here, use a butter knife. Mm-hmm. Try using a butter knife to cut a mushroom. Please. Mm-hmm. I challenge you. This is the you can't.
It's not going to happen.
You can't.
No.
In fact, I would rather supervise and use a well-sharpened knife and hold the kid's hand and keep things in and use safety in the way I supervise them and actually have them have success in cutting. And the same with those kitty scissors. Like you put the paper and it goes, oh, I can't think of a more discouraging way to learn to cut paper than I would rather give them sharp knives and supervise more closely. So again, it's kids learn through a few bumps and bruises and whatever. But I would say keep him keen, give him things that he can feel really proud of. But maybe you need to up where your fear factor is. Yes. On what your kids can do.
So the flip side then is, you know, we talk about some of the things that kids can and cannot do. Mm-hmm. What about parents and their anal retentiveness? Yes. That is the only word that's coming to mind.
That's the right one.
So
that's the right word.
So one of the chores or jobs of a child is to load the dishwasher, and then a parent opens the dishwasher and the plates are stacked this way instead of this way. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think so. The first thing I would say is take time for training. Mm-hmm. Kids don't know until you teach them. So I don't necessarily think that they are trying to be sloppy or lazy or whatever. They just don't know, you know, and it takes time to figure stuff out. So depending on their age and how much time you've invested, if you need to say the reason the plates go like this is because if they're too close together, the water doesn't get in between, or the Tupperware needs to go on the top because it melts at the bottom. You know, you can explain things like that. Now, there's other things where it's like, it really doesn't matter where those go. You just have a way you like it done.
Yes.
And sometimes I think we need to lower our standards in order to not discourage kids. And certainly don't make the mistake of undoing their work. So if you send them up to make their bed and it's all wrinkly and you don't like it, and you go and remake the bed, that is so discouraging. I mean, you don't have to be a kid to be discouraged by that. An adult would be discouraged by that because you're basically saying, why am I putting in the effort if you're just going to redo it? So you're quickly going to turn a child off from helping. But if you just comment on how they're improving, how they're getting better, they're more and more likely to put effort into straightening out those wrinkles. So we call this shaping. And I actually read I wish I gotta find it. There was a great article that I read about how training your husbands is like training the whales at the aquariums to jump for fish. Like, they don't just hold the fish out on the platform and tell the big killer whale to jump 1,000 feet in the air or whatever. They start by holding the fish just at the surface of the water, and then they lift it a little higher, and they lift it a little higher until, right? So you got to say, oh, look at your bed, you're starting to get the wrinkles straight. Oh, look at your bed, now you got the bottom straight. You want to keep noticing the effort and improve them and moving them in the right direction so that they kind of shape and get there. So talk about all the things in the dishwasher that they got right. You know, you're really focused on paying attention to where things go in the dishwasher. You've really learned that things that are plastic have to go on the top and where the water flows. Just stay on the positive side, you'll get more of it.
I need you to find that article too, because I'm curious to find out what you're training your husband on. That's similar to the fish.
Well, about parenting, same thing, because we often correct and we criticize dads and we turn them off. And they're like, look, I'm never going to be able to dress this kid right and send him to the park. I'm always going to get something wrong. You take him to the park. Yes. We shut dads down. They actually want to do a lot more, but we're so critical. So.
Speaking of articles, can you take a look on your phone? You've pulled up an article that you wrote.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
And And you were reading some of the jobs that
Yes.
are on this list, and I am making you put your put your glasses on.
Yeah.
Surprise, everybody!
Yes, when you're 55, you'll have yours on too.
Alyson even she doesn't actually know what I look like.
When did you? Hi. Oh.
Right.
So there's I have 15 articles on my website, 15 different blog posts under the tab Chores and Responsibilities. So there's
Right.
lots of extra articles there on top of our conversation today. But one of them was this idea of alternative chores, to get away from load the dishwasher and walk the dog. Notice how a child would feel like excited about these jobs. So we've got the family researcher. This is the person who loves computer time. So like asking them to look up family vacation destinations or places to purchase cheap hockey equipment, right? Someone who loves to Google and be on the computer. Meal planner, grocery list builder, social committee. That's the person who manages the social calendar for the family, ensuring there's time for family fun and that each person has time for some personal time with friends and fitness.
Love it.
Yeah, plant attendant for the horticulture, for the little horticulturalist in you.
Yes.
Mail collector and sorter. Again, that's a great job for a little kid. They love going with a little key and everything down the end of the block with their parents. Community news advocate, medical coordinator, donations coordinator, environmental advocate. So that'd be great for someone in grade 5. Organizational specialist, birthday manager, food and health authority, family meeting chair. Right? So like these are things that you can get really excited about and report back to the family and run around and share what you're doing.
So it ties into, I know in episode 14, we talked about the idea of family planning and having a family meeting. And so some of these are chores that are really reporting back to the family on a weekly basis. So it's not necessarily, looking after the family room or vacuuming. It is making sure that you have all the information ready to go for your next meeting.
And if you're the environmental advocate, you might say, hey, you know what I've been noticing is that people aren't putting this in the recycle bin, or you know what, we need to do better at, turning off the lights, because let's try to drop the hydro usage during peak hours. Like this is the kind of stuff your kids are going to start. You're going to go, that's coming out of my 8-year-old. You will be amazed at what comes out of kids when we empower them. So yeah, I really encourage parents to just sort of switch up their attitude and try on a new way of giving kids some responsibility and contributions to the family.
I love it. Let's go to another question. This question is from somebody who has an 18-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. They each have specific chores that they have been made aware of, some daily, some on weekends. She needs a solution for when the vacuum job is obviously done with no effort. What? No effort?
Give it to a 2-year-old.
That's right. It's not what I expect them to do. It's not that I expect them to do it like I would. I have given that up long ago. I feel like a broken record, but what I'm asking for is that they wipe the counter, they put the milk away. Besides getting them to do things over again, any suggestions on how to get them to care, even just a little bit more?
So, I would say that their behavior, the doing the minimum, is probably because they're feeling more that they are an indentured servant, that they're not, that it's still feeling a little bit more like made to do than an expectation. They're grown-ups. Everyone needs to pitch in. Pride of place. We all look after this place. We're all responsible for how clean or dirty we want it to be. I get this gives me a sense that instead of having mutual respect, they're feeling somehow one under. And the way that they kind of repay that one under is like, yeah, well, you can make me wipe the counter, but you can't make me care about it. Do you know? That's how it kind of feels. So I would look for ways that maybe we need to up the respect quotient. That's one thing. The second thing for right now, she can share, like I'm kind of disappointed. Like at 18 and 21, I don't want to be quality control. I don't want to be quality assurance, but it tells me that you guys don't particularly care about the house, or it's important to me, and when you don't do it, it makes me think that I'm not important to you. So these are adult kids. She could have that kind of a conversation with them. But then the other thing that she could do is she could also say, when I say wipe the counter, this is the standard I'm expecting, and show them, and then say the job isn't done until it's done to this expectation. And so I would just treat it like a job not done at all. Right? So if the thing is, I'd love to make dinner, but the kitchen's not ready for me to cook in yet. Just leave it at that. So I'm still waiting for the counters to be wiped. Well, I did wipe them. Like the way we wipe counters in this house.
Yes.
Right? So you can still hold them. No car privileges. I said I'd drive you to the mall when your jobs are done, but the vacuuming's not done. It's like, well, I vacuumed. What we talked about what a well-vacuumed living room looks like, and it's not done. So, you know what I mean? So I would just hold them accountable for the quality that you expect.
Well, and you mentioned that, maybe these kids feel like they're a little bit of a servant. I think for a lot of parents, too, they feel like they're the servants, right? That you're constantly cleaning and constantly...
Well, and I don't, depending on the age of your kids, but I really remember the taxi years. Where I was like, oh, I'm really important to you now, aren't you? Where do you want to ride to? I spent a lot of time in my car when my kids were in adolescence and before they had their driver's license. And yeah, it's a big part of parenting. I'm doing a lot. But the more my kids were independent and the more that they could do things on their own, it takes a long time to train them. Sometimes the house is going to be messier. They're going to do things not the way you like it done. But you get so much more time back when your kids are independent. They get up on their own, they're dressing themselves, looking after their bedroom, making their own lunches, getting their homework put away, pack it. It's like, I got up in the morning and I had coffee. I can go to a yoga class now. So you will get a lot of that time back if you spend the time training them for independence.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on tying allowance or money to chores and jobs?
I don't think it's a good idea. And here's why. Going back to how we opened the show, the point of helping out is because you're living in a collective and nobody gets a free ride. And you are contributing and participating to help your little collective thrive. And that's a kindness. When you start to pay people, you're no longer a volunteer in a social community. A paid job is something that you do out in the economic workforce. So payment actually creates a sense of disenfranchising. You're not really helping your fellow man. You're now doing a job. So there's a difference of the experience of saying, oh, my neighbor's sick, I'm going to go take him some soup. And will you pay me to take some soup over to my neighbor? Right? Like you're not Meals on Wheels. Like you're being neighborly.
Yes.
And so helping one another, doing what needs to be done, those are all things that actually build the bonds and the ties of living in a group. And money spoils that. So these are things that you should naturally want to do to contribute, to give back to your group. And I jokingly say, well, how would it feel if your partner said to you, hey, honey, I know you're not in the mood, but if I slipped you a 20, it's like, ew.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to monetize things that people...
We'd laugh.
Wouldn't we? But you can see how money sours what the intention is. Like, you should want to help out. It should come from a genuine position of wanting to pitch into the team. So I think I gave my kids money for jobs that were above and beyond what they were expected to do as a family member, as a community member in the family, because I think kids need opportunities to have some cash if they want to buy things or, whatever. So I had above and beyond paying jobs that I would have outsourced to other people, but not for things that they were expected to do as a family member.
Now, I can remember you saying something like shredding or, for a family business, or filing or, those are things that don't fall within the family structure.
That's right. That was under my company. And if Revenue Canada's watching, those kids were given T4s.
That's right.
I took up CPP and UIC for that shredding.
Was I not supposed to say that on the air? The idea of rewards as well kind of falls into that. So
yeah, because I don't want kids to be on little charts that, if you clean up and you do it for 7 days in a row or whatever, you get some privilege at the end or some candy or whatever. It's hard. I don't want kids motivated to help out because they're going to get something from it. And again, it goes, what it really says to the parents is, I don't think my kids would do it if I didn't bribe them. And that's actually not true. Kids will help. Now, as a parent, you might have to hold them accountable, which means when you're given the job, you might at that moment say, and what should happen if the recycle's not taken out? And what should happen if the bathroom's not clean by the time we have company? And you can talk with your kids about what would be a reasonable consequence for something not being done. Or asking your kids for a timeline. Like, it's your job to do the bathroom, when can I expect that to be done by?
Right.
And if they say, oh, well, I'll get it done today by 5 o'clock, then I can use another tool that we've talked about on the show, which is a when-then statement, which is, when the bathroom is clean, then I know at 5 o'clock that you're ready for dinner. You know, first this, then that. And so then we don't serve them dinner until their job is done.
We've heard that many times in our house. It's the, you know, can I have a friend over, and I'm just going to tidy up the rec room, and I'm going to clean the bathroom, because, you know, part of having friends over is making sure that everything looks presentable.
Well, that's what I said to my kids. Our house is not in company order. When the house is in company order, then you can have friends over. Okay, I'll go clean my room and do all this stuff. And also, as my kids got older, like, we had to change up the way we did things, because again, when they were small, they were really excited about the dusting and the mopping and the kitchen stuff. But then they had ballet, and then they had to go to friends' houses for projects, and then they had part-time jobs. And if it's your job to unload the dishwasher, and you're being a barista at Starbucks, and you come home and I gotta like pull out a pot to make dinner, now things are starting to collide. So I moved things around, and I had non-time sensitive things for my kids to do that they could just do whenever they had time over the course of the week. So long as it got done by the end of 7 days, I didn't care when they did it. So long as it was done. So again, there's no perfect way to do this. It's about what's going to work for your family, and again, here's another idea that my kids did. They liked working in teams. So instead of having just they had to do the bathroom, we had like Team Mummy Zoe, Team Daddy Lucy, and then we did the chores sort of together. So they would go off, and they liked having the little cleaning things, like,
yes,
yeah, and so and they liked doing cleaning day, where we all did it at the same time, and we put on music. So we did that for, you know, a year or so. So just get creative with it, get fun with it. Don't make it so heavy and intense, and see what you can come up with. It's going to get more cooperation in your house.
Amazing. Perfect way to end the show. Head to Alyson's website. As she mentioned, 14 alone in the search for chores and responsibilities on our website. So lots of information about this topic, as well as many more topics. RogersTV.com as well for information about the parenting show, and all of the episodes that we have taped are on YouTube as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.